I just thought to welcome our distinguished scholars, of course, researchers, and ladies and gentlemen to this very, very important webinar. It's the first in the series of our cap and gown webinars. And let me start by welcoming the panelists that have joined us this morning. And I will start again with Professor Emeka Ogwuzie, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Development, and Innovation, and also the Director of the Africa Center of Excellence for Future Energies and Electrochemical Systems, and is with the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. Professor Ogwuzie is representing Professor Unena Oti, who is the Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. Also here with us this morning is Mr. Lanre Fatimileyin, who is the President of the Oxford and Cambridge Club of Nigeria. And also here with us this morning is Mr. Unte Bizong, who is the Chief Academic Planning Officer and Assistant Director, Academic Planning, National University Commission, representing Professor Suleiman Bogoro, who is the Executive Secretary of the Commission, that's TED Fund. Number 4, we have Dr. Oluwaseun Ebiozua, who is of the Computer Science Department of Babcock University, standing in for Professor Ademola Hestayo, President and Vice Chancellor of the same university. We also have in our midst this morning, Dr. Sunday Adebisi, who is the Director of African Research University Alliance Center for Excellence in Unemployment and Skills Development, University of Lagos. The last but not the least is Professor Ochefu Yakubu, who is the Secretary General Committee of Vice Chancellor of Universities of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, you agree with me that over the last 2 decades, perhaps even longer, the number of tertiary education institutions in Nigeria has grown exponentially. Students and parents are overwhelmed by choice. Academics have a wider range of alternatives on where to pursue the careers. But questions remain as to whether greater quantity also means better quality of skills and, of course, of education that our students receive in our university. It's also the case that the majority of Nigerian universities do not feature in global ranking systems, such as the World University Ranking by Times Higher Education, Academic Ranking of World Universities by Shanghai Ranking, and of course the QS Stars by Querel Simmons. When they do appear, their lowly positions raise more questions than answers. The University of Ibadan, Nigeria's premier university, which got the highest rank on the Times Higher Education League table, was ranked at between 401 and 500, far down the scale. The whole essence of this webinar and our idea here in Business Day is to start to contribute, to begin to ask questions around these issues. Not only because we are a business publication, but we are also employers of the products of this university. We want to find a way to contribute our own little quota to understand, and through that, our understanding, try and improve Nigerian higher education system. So there are definitely many questions that I believe will come up today. Some of them is that why do Nigerian institutions, of course, why do Nigeria and the rest of Africa not rank higher than they do in global rankings? And of course, what is the difference between ranking numbers for the same university across different ranking systems? Should university administrators in Nigeria be concerned, be alarmed, or what is it that they should do about this? Around the world, university rankings, of course, have a very, very long history. We know in 1983, US News, an American media company that publishes news, opinions, and consumer advice, just as we do, launched its national university rankings. Although various attempts were made to combine statistics and rank universities have been in existence in the 19th century, this was the first attempt at a comprehensive national league table. Our commentator called it the biggest thing to hit tertiary education, especially university education, for some time. In 2003, Liang Kai-Liu of Shanghai also came up with 6 indicators which were to measure the performance of institutions from around the world. The indicators were supposed to reflect the quality of education, the quality of teaching staff, results of research, and of course, average academic productivity of the university per lecturer. This effort was what became the academic ranking of foreign universities, also known as the Shanghai rankings. It was quickly followed by a proliferation of alternative attempts at ranking universities globally. One may then ask, have these rankings, have they enjoyed global success, and why? So the fact is that university rankings have thrived in a vacuum about comparative data on higher education. They fill a gap in knowledge. Universities have emerged as complex organization systems made up of a mix of complex technical and infrastructure solutions as a result of emerging global challenges. In fact, let me add here that what I believe, one of the things that I believe will come up in the conversation this morning is the dynamic nature of the issues that we are looking at. Ranking today will definitely be different from ranking 30 years ago. So for this maiden cap and gown webinar, we have brought together preeminent university administrators, researchers, and stakeholders to look at these many issues, discuss ways to raise competitiveness of tertiary institutions in Nigeria, source ideas from knowledgeable stakeholders, bring transparency, map strategies, and of course, ultimately help students and guardians identify the institutions best matched with their interests, values, and post-study career aspiration. As a representative of Business Day, I want to sincerely thank you all for joining us here this morning. And I really, really look forward to the robust, insightful, and of course, relevant conversations that I expect that we will have this morning. I thank you all, and I really, really look forward to the conversation. Thank you all for all our panelists that have joined us this morning, and I wish you a good time here with us this morning. Thank you. Back to Obi.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Kitty. We really appreciate those very warm, welcome remarks. So to the panelists, again, we thank you for taking time out to join us today. The way we're going to take this is mainly a conversation. Business Day, as my managing director has pointed out, so that some of these rankings do not give adequate exposure to the amount of innovation going on, in our universities. On the other hand, they're supposed to support Nigerian universities, administrators, and stakeholders to say, you know what, maybe we ought to do better. What can we do better? So, within that context, we have questions around what is a world-class university? What is the strategy, for fostering world-class universities in Nigeria? What kind of incentives, do the academics need, do the researchers need? And there are all kinds of questions that come up. So, as he's already identified the first speakers we have today, we have Professor Emeka Oguzie, thank you very much. We have Mr. Larry Fatimilehin, we have Dr. Oluseun Bisiowa, we have Professor Sunday Adebisi, we have Mr. Unte Bisong, and we have Professor Ochefu Yakubu. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be moving around, around the panelists to ask various questions. Sometimes, one question would lead to another. Even though prep questions have been heard, what we may have is one question leading to another. At the end of the day, we might just abandon the script to get the best out of the conversation. So I'll be starting with Professor Oguzie. So this debate around rankings, UI, if anyone could hear, everyone here has met people from UI, they never cease to remind people that they are Nigeria's premier university. But this debate around rankings, how much of it is objective and how much of it is just subjective bias? Because someone who believes my university is the best, no matter the amount of evidence presented, person will always, challenge that. So is it a case of what we have with Ghanaian jollof rice and Nigerian jollof rice? Is it possible to, disentangle what underlies the rankings of universities.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Obi. Good morning, distinguished panelists. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, the ranking thing is it's objective to an extent, and also it's very, very subjective, open to lots of subjective biases, because there is not one, or there are not 5 indices that will be sufficient, right, to account for all the activities that are going on in the university. So the rankings are important. Yeah, they're important for universities to build their reputation, right, which is useful for them when they want to go into collaborations, or when they want to attract talents and expertise. So in terms of that, ranking is very good. But that, for me, that's good enough. Then also the rankings are very useful because every university now is aware of the ranking processes, and it's helping us in terms of improving our change management systems and driving strategies to implement change. But that's it. And globally, it's okay. But for us in Nigeria, we have more pressing problems. I think that universities are more concerned with staying afloat. That's Nigerian universities, right? They are more interested in survival. And the reason is simple. Most public universities are not sufficiently funded. So you cannot achieve world class the way it should be without having certain basic or certain baseline facilities. Some time ago, there was this needs assessment of the needs of Nigerian universities. And anyone that saw that report would have, people didn't know how bad it was, how much decay had crept into the system. Until today, most of those needs have not been well addressed, right? So the issue of ranking is good, but more important is the need for universities to be universities in the real sense of it. So that's where we have the main challenge for us as universities. So like the MD mentioned, over the years in Nigeria, the budget for education has been reducing, and the government has been creating new universities to tap into the reducing budget, and that's a big problem. So for me, ranking is good, but Nigerian universities, we have more serious problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll move to, thank you very much, Prof. I'll move to Professor Ochefu next. Professor Ochefu, I believe you're here with us. Okay, perfect. Professor Ochefu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Your legend precedes you, sir. Your legend precedes you, sir, because this is a side information, but legend has it that Mami Market in Nigerian barracks are named after your mother. So that is a small, small part of history. So the question that I'd asked Professor Guzie, which was, are rankings necessary? And he had touched on the funding challenge. Now, there was a research done by some Monica Benito, Pilar Gil, and Rosario Romero. And the title of the paper was called Funding, Is It Key to Standing Out in University Rankings? And what the research showed was that the top 100 universities received at least 100% more funding than universities in the 100 to 200 range, and in additional multiples of those in 200 to 300. So the question is funding, or rather, is ranking a function of funding? Do you agree with that position? Does this come down to Naira and Kobo?
Yeah, it does come down to Naira and Kobo because the fundamentals are basically the same, and the bottom line in terms of expectation is also basically the same. And so if you look at the parameters that are used globally for ranking, there are indicators that suggest that if you don't have the required budget, there's no way you're going to emerge as the top 10. I mean, it's like use the analogy of football. The biggest clubs in the world are the ones who have the capacity to spend hundreds of millions on buying very good footballers and coaches and facilities. And so it translates into a positive side for them. And then the clubs that are just hanging in there cannot match those big boys in terms of their budgetary provisions. So when you look at the research budget, for example, of universities like Princeton, it translates into millions of dollars per head per student. If you look at the staff-student ratio, how many professors to the student population, it also translates into the numbers that you see that are out there. And I think the previous speaker said it all, that Nigerian universities are in survival mode. And so some of the parameters that you are talking about, we are not even going there as it were. We're not even close to any of those parameters, because the Vice Chancellor is more concerned with how to generate 10, 12 hours of power on his campus to ensure that his staffs are flowing, ensure that his staff are paid as and when due. So these are bread and butter issues that confront him on a daily basis, that the bigger picture of ranking is, it doesn't come close to his own perspectives at all. But more fundamental than funding is also the fact that the philosophy of university education in Nigeria, on the one hand, the governance model that we are employing to drive universities forward, on another hand, and then on the third hand, the curriculum that we are also using to put those processes together are in some circumstances 30, 40 years out of tune with global standards. So when you now pack all of this on the table, you realize that even if we provide the requisite funding today, we will need to tear down our current governance processes and structures. We need to tear down our curriculum to be able to unpack it, to provide a type of competitive edge that universities in other parts of the world are operating. So that would be my take as far as your first question is concerned.
Thank you very much. So I'll just shoot straight to Mr. Larry Fatimlane. He's the up-bridge man in our midst. Is Mr. Fatimlane here? You had attended the public school in England. After Imperial, you found your way, you went up to Cambridge. So I mean, by any standard, you've had the best of foreign education in very well-ranked institutions. But now you work in Nigeria. Professor Chefu just mentioned the question around, just a second. He just mentioned the issue around ranking universities and the governance overhaul necessary beyond funding. Cambridge has a foundation. You know, many of these universities abroad they get a lot of, in fact, they're private universities more or less. Do you think that is something holding back the Nigerian university system in terms of global rankings, since most universities here are publicly funded?
Thank you, Obi. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to Business Day for having me on this seminar. I must caveat everything I'm going to say by saying that obviously I've not had the benefits of a Nigerian tertiary education. So, I can only speak with the benefit of having gone to the universities that I have. The funding issue that's been highlighted is critical. I mean, the universities I went to were extremely well funded, not necessarily just public funding, but funding from foundations, as you've mentioned, endowments from students that have attended those universities in the past and who keep donating and making donations. Funding from private corporations, private institutions as well for research at these universities. So, I mean, all these things make a huge difference. They make a huge difference. In terms of the situation, you know, here in the Nigerian universities, I know there's been some efforts at some universities to tap the alumni networks that they have. But I think, you know, overall, the reliance is mostly on public funding. And I can imagine that it must be very difficult for administrators to think about things like rankings, as they said, when they have to think about many different things, just getting you know, the universities to move along and to run.
I'm curious, Mr. Panmahi,
yeah.
having, you know, been to Imperial, having been to Cambridge, if you were to make a hire today and you had a first-class graduate from Unilag or from, you know, ABU, for example, you're in the real estate line and they both studied, you know, real estate, or I don't know what it's called here, estate valuation, estate service, whatever it is, first-class Unilag, first-class Cambridge, and they both spoke equally well presented. Who would you pick?
You know, that's a very difficult question to answer. And I know why I say so. Obviously, you know, the universities you mentioned, you know, Cambridge University or Harvard University have the advantages, you know, in terms of teaching, education, a global network. But I've had the experience of working with, when I was working at an international investment bank, I had the experience of working with interns who, you know, we set up an African internship program and we got in interns to come to London. I was working in London at the time, from University of Lagos, Obafemi Awolowo University, Covenant University. And, you know, these students were excellent. Yes, I mean, they did extremely well. They were well-spoken, intelligent, very resourceful, very highly driven. And I think, you know, it's borne out because years later, some of these students who were on that internship have gone on to establish very successful startups in technology, in the technology sector. So it's a very difficult question to answer, and it depends on what I'm looking for. Obviously, since you've asked me, in my line of work, real estate is a local business. So if I had two students with first-class degrees from both universities, I am likely to pick the Unilag graduates because they're in Nigeria, and in my line of work, you know, I'm looking for someone who understands the local environment. But I would say that, you know, the advantage of some of these degrees is that it allows you to take a second look, right? So if I saw a degree, someone with a degree holder from Harvard, I will take a second look because I know it has a brand, I know the network they have, but then I have to delve deeper to see if they meet my requirements. So I think, you know, that's the advantage that some of these degrees from foreign, so-called highly ranked universities offer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So next we're moving on to Professor Adebisi. Professor Adebisi has a sustained interest in entrepreneurship, you know, in building communities of innovation, which he has been doing for several years. Now, when we look at universities around the world, some of the top universities, Stanford, MIT, Harvard, Cambridge, many of them have successfully seeded, you know, communities around them, you know, companies in biotech, companies in software development, you know, that have created new jobs, and there's an ongoing symbiosis, you know, with the academic community. In Nigeria today, the only university that seems to have successfully done that, whether consciously or not, you know, through its own deliberate effort, is Unilag and the Yabacon, you know, Nigerian Silicon community. How come this hasn't happened in other places around Nigeria? What do you think are the reasons?
Thank you very much for having me. And I thank you, Business Day, for this kind of discussion at this moment. And this is a valid question.
And I'm going to be a little bit raw here because this is very, very dear to my heart. And I will start by saying this. We've been going through different generations of, when we talk about technology development, the first generation, the second generation, the third generation. We are now at the fourth industrial revolution. And I kept on saying we lost out in all those generations as Nigerians and as Africans. In fact, maybe we are still in the first or second, industrial revolution, if you want to talk about that. But unfortunately, the world does not wait for us. Nobody will wait and say, let Africa finish on the second, industrial revolution so that they can catch up with us. It's not going to happen. And you discover that we've not been able to take better advantage of this. And if we must be globally competitive, we must not hide behind the fact that probably, nobody consult us in whatever parameters they're using to do all this ranking. All the ranking parameters are developed by the big guys. I mean, the big academic guys, who have been dominating this in the last 100 years. Yeah, that's a discussion for another day. But the issue is the fact that what does the university do? The university is a manufacturing center that take in youth at their early age or ages, bring them into the university system, prepare them for the place of work, decent job, and release them back to the society for the industrially like Larry Olutimei to pick and to choose from several people. That's what university does, nothing more. Therefore, when Larry wants to choose, I like the way he answered that question. It is because it is in his own line of business. Probably the local content is very important. And I like the fact that they say, yes, he will choose Unilag student because of the fact that at least this student knows Nigeria environment. But when you start talking about some of the globally recognized international jobs, you begin to see that the employer will first of all look at the ranking of the university before even, bringing any graduate within the opportunity of being selected at all. So definitely many university students will even drop out. I'm sorry I have to flog it before I answer the question because this is very important to me. And I want all of us academics, professors here today to take the bull by the horn. It's important. We cannot wish away ranking. The ranking politics is taking us, is sending most of the African university behind. We must play in that space. So you discover that the ranking of the university of this graduate will be the first important thing to be considered when you're talking about global jobs. And at the end of the day, it does not give most of the African universities, except most universities from South Africa, and very recently that UHI and Unilag now have been ranked among the first, 600. Now we're coming into it. So you discover that that opportunity will not be available because we are not properly ranked. Therefore, there is a need for every university to pay attention to this because the world will not wait for us. So I will come back to what you now asked me. When I was in Silicon Valley in 2019, I delivered a lecture in Silicon Valley. I look at San Francisco, the Bay. Look at the volume of business activities that are happening there and the connection between Stanford and the Bay Area. I sat in my hotel and I said, wait a minute. When you look at the budget of the Bay Area put together, it's bigger than the entirety of the budget of the 52 countries in Africa. Look, and when you look at our population in Africa, close to 1.7 billion, and just one entity that is not probably bigger than Ibadan, if we say the revenue budget of that place is bigger than all the 52 countries in Africa. and ask the question, what do they do there? It is simple. Everybody looks at who can give value. What are you doing in the university system? What knowledge do you have? How can you integrate with us? We submit to as many of you that you're driving knowledge in the university system. We bring our industry, experience. Let's blend this together. When the two comes to meet, 2 + 2, it's not going to be 4, it's going to be 5. Synergy will be created. And that is how this started. And that is how Stanford has been able to contribute so significantly in developing, the Silicon Valley. And I ask myself, if you do not know, business you're going to know, Lagos is the 5th largest economy in Africa. Lagos is the 5th largest economy in Africa. So if Lagos was to be a country, it would be the 5th largest economy. And I say University of Lagos is in the heart of this commercial center. Then things must change. So when I came back, I had discussion with my vice chancellor, and that is why we became the first university to have an incubation hub in any Nigerian university. And I now decided that for every of the students that is in the University of Lagos, you must therefore begin to look at the problems around the Yaba area, around Lagos in Nigeria, create value out of them, and we're going to turn that to profitable and bankable business venture. And amazingly, I had the support of the vice chancellor of the university who understood this and decided to sponsor the approval of another, like a degree, a diploma, for all the students in the University of Lagos, whereby it is compulsory for you to do from your year 1 to year 5, if you're doing a 5-year course, an entrepreneurship program that will lead to you creating businesses before you leave at the university. And University of Lagos will register the business for you free of charge. We support you, get angel investor, to invest into you. So it was a deliberate attempt. What I saw in Harvard, what I saw in Stanford, what I saw in Iowa, what I saw in Carleton University made me to say, okay, if you must build this nation, this is the way to go. And we've been pitching that to all Nigerian universities, and then UC just bought into that, which has made us now to start changing the curricula of, entrepreneurship in Nigeria. So I think that what drove us is, which I will stop there, what drove us is the fact that realizing that we are at the commercial hub of Africa as a university. What is our input? Even if the industry does not understand that they're supposed to relay with us, let Mountain go and meet Mohammed. And that is what I think we did.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What I pick out from what you said is that universities are located in specific geographic locations. They need to find a way to solve local problems of businesses in that area. So university in an agriculturally rich region should look at solving, agri-related problems. In Lagos, huge business city, solve problems in the business city. Thank you very much, Professor Adebisi. Next, I want to move to Dr. Ebisuwa, Dr. Luasheun. Yes, please. I'll also urge all our different speakers, try and keep responses to 3 minutes maximum so that, we can move around. There's so many questions to ask. And I'm sure possibly later I might have some questions submitted. So Dr. Luasheun, just out of curiosity, Babcock has, when you think of private universities in Nigeria, Babcock always comes up number 1, number 2, number 3 max. For university that matriculated its first set of students, I think in 1999. Today, Babcock, has won, national acclaim and in fact, continental renown. If you had to pick 3 things the university has done right, considering it's privately funded, what would they be?
Thank you very much, Mr. Obi Onyeso. Thank you for having me on this program. I'm here standing for my President Vice Chancellor, Professor Demola Estayo. And you've asked a very pertinent question. Babcock University, just like you said, is usually ranked among the top private universities in the country. But talking about the factors for success, you've said I should mention 3. And quickly, I will just hint on them and I will expand slightly. One of the things that has been the secret of Babcock University is Babcock University, first of all, is a Seventh-day Adventist institution, and the Seventh-day Adventist Church has a general conference in the United States of America. Now, in the church system, we have what is called the International Board of Education. Under the International Board of Education, there is an appendage body called AAA, Adventist Accrediting Association, which does something similar to what the NUC does in Nigeria. So, but the AAA is saddled with the result of going across all the continents where we have over 150 Adventist universities to accredit their programs. And in fact, I will tell you that the AA accreditation is almost tougher than NUC. So this is done to ensure that all universities under the Adventist body run programs that are of top quality. And this also now requires universities and mandates them to leverage networks. So one of the cities of Bako University that we leverage on networks with other universities. Some of them, other 70 Adventist institutions at times, we actually have a number of collaborations with them. We have exchange programs, having some of our students, faculty go there to get exposure. So all of these, when people go and get exposure, they come back to the university and then give the same knowledge back to the students. So this has been a major thing that has actually helped us. Beyond that also is we have a number of MOUs with other universities that are not even 70 Adventist institutions. For example, we have an MOU with Savannah State University in the United States of America, for example. We have also the University of Birmingham, and all of this is just in a bid to help even our, for example, University of Birmingham in UK, we have an MOU that permits a student from Bako University who has studied a course like international law and diplomacy to go over there and within 2 years complete a law degree. So all of these things actually have been a great help for the university. Beyond that also is the quality of teaching. The quality of teaching we have here in Babcock University, based on the expertise, of the professors we have, the lecturers, who a number of them, for example, those in accounting, those in professional courses, actually also work closely with professional bodies like CIBN, CITN, and a number of them. So over time, they're able to also ensure that students get requisite training. Part of the problems we have today, with students especially, because the students eventually are the ones that define the university. When we talk today about Harvard University, talk about Cambridge, talk about Oxford, talk about Yale University and all of them, a number of times you see that the output of the graduates is a major factor in rating the university. And this we know very much here. And what we now do is that we ensure that students in professional programs also participate in programs. For example, for ICANN, they come here to Babcock University. Our students take ICANN. We have actually a student version of the exam, which they don't have to go outside of school to write, but which will be equivalent, and they skip a number of steps on the ATS for them based on what they've taught them here already. Now they take exams, and every year we have nothing less than 20 students chartered, even before they leave university. These are deliberate efforts the university makes. KPMG, for example, also comes from time to time to source students from Babcock University to get them early exposed into the labor market and things like that. Another thing, before I stop, is the quality of research. In Babcock University also, we pride ourselves in quality research. And in fact, the school, the academic division, mandates lecturers to actually put out their research output, with a lot of intrinsic rewards for lecturers who are able to, showcase themselves. We have Faculty of the Year award. We have also reward for quality research. For example, this year alone, we got a number of patents, at Abuja. Within the last 2 years, we've got about 7 or 8 patents now. So some of these things, the focus and the interest of the university in prioritizing the quality of teaching students get, the quality of research output of lecturers, and also mandating them by promotion criteria. That's even another thing I need to also tell us. In Babcock University, for a lecturer to get promoted, there are a number of things that the lecturer has to satisfy under the 3 mandates of the university: teaching, research, and community service. And I'll tell you, for example, when it comes to publications, the university has a very stringent policy. In fact, lecturers are limited by where they can actually publish. It must be publications that have journal impact factors, the journals and all of them. So I'll stop there for now. I think these are just a few of the things that's been our success secret. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shehu. So a few things I got from what you said. One was the international roots of the university with the Adventist body. The second were international partnership. You mentioned University of Birmingham. The third were, relationships with professional bodies like CIT and CAN and the rest. And of course, you said the emphasis on research. So thank you very much for waiting. Next, I move to Mr. Inte Bisson, who is representing Professor Rashid of the National Universities Commission. Thank you so much, Mr. Bisson. Really appreciate your time. We're just curious to know, does the NUC follow the rankings of universities assigned to them by international bodies? Do you even bother to know what's going on with these rankings at NUC? Your mute, please. I think you're still mute. Perfect.
Am I good? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for having me. When you say does NUC follow the rankings of the university assigned to them, that's not part of NUC responsibility. It's not part of our mandate. However, ranking has come to stay. When you talk about the delivery of university education, ranking has come to stay. And NUC has always encouraged Nigerian universities to get involved in ranking. But I want to say very clearly that the issue we have with our universities, why we are being ranked, our universities are being ranked low, is not because they are not good. Now, ranking is based on visibility. Our universities are not visible publications going on. They have a lot of quality teaching going on, but they don't open where the world will see. So we've realized that over the years, and then we have presently instituted a scheme where we are training DAPs, Directors of Academic Planning, across all the Nigerian universities every Wednesday and Saturdays to teach them the art of, they don't see you. If they don't capture your work on the internet, nobody will rank you. So that is also our problem. Our challenge with the university is largely because of poor visibility. It's not because they're not good. So to say NUC as a body, we did our ranking. There was a rank, we last did our own ranking of Nigerian universities 2005. But that was strictly based on the results of program accreditation. Since then, we've not been able to do that. But we are very hopeful that as we are training the DAPs now, as soon as they get the rudiment on how to go to the world, to be visible to the world, we're going back to ranking. So ranking is a very good concept. We encourage it, but it's not the responsibility of NUC to ensure that our universities are ranking high there. It is the responsibility of the universities themselves to ensure that they create that enabling environment to be visible. So, and I want to say that being visible is not funding. You know, I last heard someone talk about funding being responsible to many things. Funding is necessary for university education to try, but it's not essential the only thing. You don't need funding. You don't need funding per se to ensure that your IT personnel upload your stuff on Google. You don't need it per se. It's not huge to do that. So there are tiny bit of things, bit of leadership things, bit of responsibilities that the universities themselves have to imbibe. There's a culture that centered on visibility. If you're not visible, nobody will rank you. So we've always encouraged our university to be visible. That's why we talk about ICT in Nigerian University. We'll talk about establishment. We compel universities to establish, to create a director of information and communication technology. These are all things that borders on ranking. We compel them to establish director of quality assurance, director of academic planning. These are a gamut of activities that when they harness them together and then create that enabling environment, dump them out there for the world to see, they will be ranked higher. So the few universities that are being visible, like LASU, like UI, these are universities that are trying their best to create some bit of visibility. So a lot is happening in our system, but visibility is our setback. That's our humble submission as a commission on this matter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bisson. I will still plead with everyone if we keep responses within, the 3-minute range, 3-minute range, so that we can go around. So many questions to ask. I will come back to Professor Gusier. What I take from Mr. Bissong's submission is that visibility is critical. Business is also in the content business. So we're like a university, but we don't do, our own type of research is news. And we also face the constant challenge of making sure our news gets visibility on Google. So I'll come back to Professor Gusier. Now, Webometrics ranking of world universities is taken as the largest ranking system. They rank over 33,000 tertiary institutions around the world. And the criteria it uses are 3. 1, visibility. 2nd, transparency. And the 3rd is excellence, the number of citations VIPA receives. Transparency is the number of top cited researchers in that particular university. And visibility, which Mr. Bissong have referred to, web visibility. Now, according to Webometrics, I hope Professor Gusier is here. These are the top, I'll just run through them quickly, the top 10 universities in Nigeria. UI in order, number 1, UI, number 2, Covenant University, number 3, OAU IFE, number 4, UNN, number 5, Unilag, number 6, University of Port Harcourt, number 7, ABU Zaria, number 8, Federal University of Technology Akure, number 9, Landmark, and number 10, Federal University of Technology Mina. On this list, we don't see Uniben, we don't see Federal University of Technology Owerri, we don't see UniJust, we don't see Unical, we don't see University of Ilorin, we don't see Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, we don't see Barry University Kano, which are some of, generally regarded as Nigerian also. Any controversy around sometimes when these rankings are published? Did they cause any controversy in the academic community?
So thank you very much, Obi. There is no controversy, right? The rankings are done yearly for a reason, because the university system is dynamic, right? So things change. Futo used to be among the top 10 a while ago, and that has changed with time. So it's not a problem. So that the university now has more fundamental issues to handle, right? So yeah, visibility is very important, but you have to be visible with the right quality. It's not just about being visible. And there's something that we have a problem of communicating output to society. It's something mentioned somewhere before, right? There is no what they call science communication. Firstly, I think Nigeria, we are not doing badly. We have a systematic problem in the country which must reflect in the academia. You cannot isolate the university from the hiccups in the system in Nigeria. That's one, right? And most of these universities and Oxford and co, they're clocking almost 1,000 years. That's a lot of experience, while some of us are just 40 years. So we will learn from them, but it's a process. What we need to get right is the system, right? For instance, the system in communicating our output. Now, you have to ask yourself a question: is society well informed to receive this output? Do they care about it? Right? There's something people tell you, say, leave this thing, it's not academics, it's not professor talk, this one, that one, that one. That's the attitude even in governance. So people don't seem to realize the importance the university system, the role you can play even in this national development. So one thing is, then the second thing is the universities pushing this information out sufficiently, right? Just on Saturday, I was at a wedding of my colleague, and I was sitting with my colleagues in the research office and the Futo Information and Public Relations Unit. And I was asking them about this issue of science communication, and they didn't know much about it. So I set up a team there with them, and I gave them challenges. And I showed them that it was actually a skill now that the developing world has realized, that people have to learn to communicate science. The problem is we leave everything to the professor, right? The lecturer's interest primarily is to get promoted. And we must, like every other thing people do, follow the path of least resistance to achieve your aim. So people have to come in, the society has to come in, the professionals have to be developed to work in these areas. There's something, if we're able to communicate science sufficiently, if you have experts in this area, then we can now go into the era of what is called science advice, which the developing world has mastered over time. Where those in politics, the government and the politics depend on the academia, depend on science and technology information from academia in the policy development. So I believe strongly that Nigeria, we are slow, right? But people are working behind the scenes now, putting the right processes, the right structures. And soon these things will start to have effect. Thank you very much.
Yes, just before you go, Prof, because I just want to run through the questions so that we can meet up. The plan is that we should be done here by 11:45. We have, some time left. But I'm curious to know, a few months ago, FUTO had done a symposium where various cutting-edge topics, agricultural value chains, blockchain, design concepts in renewable energy, all those types of, really forefront topics were discussed at the symposium. I went online later on to check if there were news stories around that symposium. Could hardly find anything. Mr. Bistong had mentioned, the IT department should upload research, but the truth is that academic research is hard for the layman like me to digest. Universities also need to have, I don't know what they call it now, in those days it was called PR unit or something, that can digest and break it down, for laymen, so the newspapers like us at Business Day, can feed it out to the public. Does that happen at university currently?
Yeah, so that's what I mentioned earlier, right? People don't consider science information as part of PR information, more or less. People think science information is for scientists. So even those we bring into the university PR units are not science communicators, more or less. So you have to start to train them to do that. You don't have to leave it for the researchers. The researchers' interest is to publish in the journals and get grades for that. So the university PR system has to start to train the people that work in the university information units to communicate science. How many times do they go to the professors or to the departments and say, what are you guys doing? We leave these things for academics, right? And the average academic also has a lot of pressures. Most important is to get promotion, and putting information on the newspapers doesn't give him any promotion. So it's not, it adds no value to his, so the university system has to train science communicators to go and dig out the aspects of the university science and take information to be useful for the public. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I'll move over to Professor Chefu again. Professor Chefu, I hope you're here with us. So he had mentioned science communication sits with the university administrators. The Council of Vice Chancellors, you're very actively involved and, providing coordination there. But the question I want to ask you now is, some research was done not too long ago, and it showed that for many students, not just from Nigeria, but from around the world, who were going overseas to school, which is very costly. It's estimated that there are over 13,000 Nigerian students currently in the UK in various institutions, spending an average of £10,000 a year. This does not include those who are in America, those in Middle East, those in Asia, studying. That's a huge amount of money. So overall, let's say 350 billion, rough estimate naira, every year is spent on foreign education. But here's the thing. It was found that for many of them, the universities they pick abroad have very little to do with the ranking of the university itself. When the survey was done, these are the things that were most important. Again, in order of preference. One, they wanted to go to a place where, they felt, they were going to get internships while they are studying there, and also get a post-graduation work permit. They felt that traveling gives them cultural exposure. they felt that studying abroad, they would have access to teachers, personal experience with teachers, unlike in Nigeria, where many teachers, something that Professor Guzie had mentioned, a lot of Nigerian lecturers are overwhelmed, so they don't have time for personal interaction with students. And then, of course, they wanted, the lifestyle of living abroad. And number 5 was where they said, yes, possibly, if the university is highly ranked, would consider it. How do you explain this, sir? That despite all the effort put into rankings, even abroad, very, very few students pick a university based on rankings.
Yeah, the answer is pretty straightforward. Here we go to university, our choice of which university to attend is driven by a number of variables. What is the cutoff mark? What is the quality of staff? If it's a private university, what are the parameters that will assist you in getting a job in terms of the accommodation facilities, in terms of the extracurricular facilities, the staff-student ratio, and things like that. If it's a public university, how easy is it to get an admission? Which course do you want to study? And things like that. So the decision at the level of the student and the parent is driven by variables that are completely different from what happens in other parts of the world. In other parts of the world, you are looking for, is this university a research university? Are you going there because you want to enhance your research exposure and experience? Is it a university that is highly rated in terms of the output, graduate output? How quick do their graduates get employed once they graduate? In some other universities, it's a case of what is the student experience in terms of the community of students within that particular university. So a lot of the variables that drive international education, it's pretty different from the ones that we have in our own Nigerian experience. And when you look at the fact that of the 201 universities we currently have in Nigeria, 99 of them are private, and the oldest private universities are only 23 years old. You understand that those dynamics that you are referring to are still being built within the context of aspects of our higher education. Within the first generation universities, those ones that are 60 years and above, you see that what drives the interests are also from the alumni population. University of Lagos is a huge brand that everybody knows excels in certain areas. So if you want to do mass comm, do law, you want to do medicine, there are some of those programs that the university has that huge brand that everybody knows them for. Then you go to University of Nigeria and Nsukka, you go to ABU, you want to do architecture, you want to do engineering. So these are traditions that have been laid over time by some of those universities. The second generation universities, you asked that question, I think to Prof, in terms of why don't we see the likes of University of Ilorin, the likes of University of Calabar, ATBU, and these are some of the universities who in their heydays were some of the best universities in Nigeria, but suddenly they've slipped out of the top 10. And then you see a Covenant University that is less than 25 years old has crept into the top 10. Landmark University that is about less than 15 years old has also cropped them. So universities are beginning to see that, look, we can establish our niche. Another thing that is happening is the fact that we're also beginning to see the emergence of specialized universities in Nigeria. The number of specialized universities is also increasing, driving a process that is also going to translate into a lot of differences as far as the choice that are available to students are concerned. So it's a mix of all these variables that you have mentioned, and not just a one-off thing as far as where you want to go to and how you want to get there is concerned.
Thank you really very much. You had mentioned from what you said, two things I picked out. One was the experience of students, the focus that the dynamics are changing. So the league tables, Man U was #1 a while ago, today it's Chelsea, tomorrow it's Arsenal. So it's always changing. So the same applies to universities, nothing is static. But also, I think some university administrators are starting to understand university as brand. Larry had mentioned earlier that going to Harvard means they'll take a second look at even perhaps you might not do well in the interview, but they will say, for the fact he went to Harvard, for the fact she went to Cambridge, maybe he was having a bad day during the interview. Let's give him a high second chance. So again, Nigerian universities, some are already invested in their brands, which brings me back to Larry. The latest Times Higher Education rankings show that the top 50 universities in the world have an average of 25% of foreign students, 25% of the student body, foreign students. And on average, 20 students per academic faculty member. During your time studying, how did international diversity, and staff to student ratio, how did it affect your overall student experience, which sort of ties into what Professor Ochefa referred to?
Yeah, thank you. That's it's a very good question. I would say that it was an important consideration for my postgraduate degree. At the time I was, my decision making for my undergraduate degree was based on what I expected the quality of teaching to be. And I guess because of the quality of teaching I received at Imperial College, that was going to always draw a very diverse body of students to that university. But for my postgraduate degree, the diversity was also very important because at that time I was also focusing on building a global network in what we are seeing is a global village. Small classes are very important. It's very important for learning. You get a better teaching experience, and you will get a better education. When lecturers are not overwhelmed, and they can spend time with you, you can generate ideas. It leads to a much better experience, and it just means that the connection that a student feels with a university is strengthened. And in the long run, that is very important. Going back to the alumni networks as well, because it means they're more likely to be engaged alumni, they're more likely to give and provide funding. At Oxford and Cambridge, they say you read for a degree. So students are reading for a degree, which means that, with the smaller class sizes, you can read very widely. You are getting more attention. So that's important. Also the diversity, having a large international student body is very, very important. Like for me personally, I've not had any reason to go to China or to Singapore for any work, but I have friends there. So I know that if I ever have to travel, to any of those places, very far-flung places, there's someone I can reach out to, or I can tap my alumni network to see who can help me in those places. So I think those are some of the benefits. Building up a diverse student body is very important. I don't know how easy it would be for Nigerian universities to do so right now. Obviously, the ranking is what drives interest. International rankings is what will drive international student interest in a university. And which is why you'll probably find, I don't know, but you probably find that the highest ranked universities are probably the most diverse anyway. And those highest ranked universities anyway, I know from those international rankings also score diversity. And, some of have funding to recruit and bring in international students. So again, that's the advantage they have It comes from being able to be better funded. It comes from experience, a lot of experience in managing these things. But yes, smaller classes are very important. A network and an international diverse network is also a big plus and drives the decision of many students to go to these universities. Thank you.
I come to Professor Adebisi, I just want to jump over to Dr. Oluwaseun. So Babcock International, roots. But again, I remember when I was in university many eons ago, around campus, we'll see Indian students, we'll see some South African students, in Nigeria. But I don't know how deliberate a policy this was. Do Nigerian universities have an international strategy, international diversity strategy in terms of attracting students from other countries and attracting faculty from other countries? I don't know if you'd like to speak to this, Dr. Oluwaseun.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. What a good question you've asked. But before I talk about Babcock, I want to talk about the general picture quickly about the Nigerian universities. Just like discussions we've had, I wasn't born then, but many years ago, I know and I read University of Ibadan, the Premier University, they had a number of foreign students that used to be there those days, even the University of Nigeria and Nsukka, and a number of them. But the narrative today is different. The narrative today is different. And this also, because I'm happy we have a representative from AUC here, this also, the AUC has a role to play. We see admission, the criteria for admitting students into the university is also a factor that has prevented internalization of our programs. Today, if you go to state university, for example, the policy is that you must admit a certain fraction from that state. If we have some federal universities that even operate still on that same thing, I want to start mentioning names. But once that has become a policy, and then you have given a factor or a number of students out of maybe 100%, you say 70% must be from so and so state, and then the remaining 30% is what the other Nigerians have to just do for. So what would be the spaces left to think of foreigners? Number one, I'm just trying to tell us by admission policy, we have not even created that. Number two also is how attractive are the programs. For a foreigner to leave his or her country to come to another country to study is because obviously you are getting better quality. Obviously, you are getting something you cannot find within your own local environment. You get better trained. These are things that will inform people to go out of the shores of their country. But I'm saying by the system in Nigeria now, that is not really happening. But let me just say a few things about Babcock University, but not just Babcock. I know there are a few schools also doing this. In Babcock, like I said earlier, based also on the church policy, because the General Conference in the US, it's actually mandatory for universities to admit a certain fraction every year from other countries, even in Africa. Sometimes Francophone nations, there's a fraction you have to take from some Francophone nations in Africa, from some countries in Eastern Africa, and so on. So based on that, even if you come to, I teach in computer science department, if you come to my class now, at least I will tell you I have about 5 students from Equatorial Guinea and Ivory Coast in my class. But that is what I'm saying. What I said backward to do that is because of the policy, of the church. But I'm saying Nigerian universities, we need to do more in, and then there are deliberate efforts or strategies that should be put in place to also enforce and to engender internalization. When we talk about grants, today you see Nigerian universities, faculty all apply, even including, we apply abroad for grants. So if that is happening, that is why I also see a lot of our faculties will find out themselves going to Yale, going to Stanford for one fellowship or the other. But how many times do you have people coming from there over here? Where are the grants available for them to do so? So I will stop at this point, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oluwaseun. What I get from what you said has been policies need to be in place to encourage internationalization. It's not something you can just wish for or be random about. Universities need to do that. Now I'll come over to Professor Adebisi. In the rankings debate or in the rankings discussion, there has been like a tension between the university administrators on one side and the academics on the other. Sometimes the academics say university administrators are the ones who respond to the questionnaires. They aren't really engaged, during this process. I'm curious to know, first of all, who do you think ideally should be the one responding? That's number one. And secondly, should those who are ranking institutions depend on the information they source directly from the university? Should the university be ranked without its consent? What are your thoughts? Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me once again. Maybe I will talk about the University of Lagos model, which actually takes us from not even being ranked before, about 4 years ago, into successively now being in the THE 500 to 600 to 500 in our ranking capacity now, following closely with UI. It is not left for the non-academic in University of Lagos. We have a professor who is heading the ranking parameters and preparation for University of Lagos. It's a task given to a professor because we understood, just like I said the other time, we understood that it is important that we play in this space deliberately if we want to allow our staff, our students, the community, people that pass through University of Lagos to be globally competitive. So the professor that is in charge at every point in time will study the 13 parameters of THE, of all of those things, and send to the university community the things that are required. In a particular session, it will tell the university another ranking is coming up by September 2023. We have so window. This window closes by January or by February. Everyone should upload his or publication within so and so. My own unit that looks after the entrepreneurship that has actually helped the university to move so sporadically on this ranking platform in terms of connecting the gown with the industry and looking at industry income that can be earned and how our students can contribute there to, I'm notified as quickly as possible. Businesses that we've created and all of those things, the data are sent as quickly as possible. So in that wise, we are able to supervise our ranking parameters from the office of the professor that is in charge of that, who will always raise the red flag. Take, for example, if a department of psychology has not done so well in publication, it's going to raise the red flag and to ask question, is it that you people have published and you are not visible? Can you please send to the academic planning unit all your publication within so and so. Google form is sent out, links sent out so that you can do the uploading. I think in the last 3 weeks, it's been made mandatory for every teachers in the university who are not on Google Scholar, who do not have their OSID identification, to ensure that that is done as quickly as possible. Those that needed to register on Nexivia, because you see, some of us have risen up to say, we can't just sit behind. I kept on saying it, I don't like joining in the discussion of whether the parameters are skewed or not. It does not interest me. What are the parameters? If we understand the parameters, let's rise up to those parameters. Because the university that have consistently been the first 100, I mean the university that have consistently doing the same thing in terms of research, teaching, industry engagement, and bringing out things that are very fantastic, for people to see, international outlook. So that is what we do at University of Lagos. So it's not left for the non-academic. So it's not even the business of the non-academic, because when you look at some of the things that are within the ranking, it may be even difficult for somebody who is not in the academic environment, the academic line, to quite understand what it is. Yes, they support us in putting some of those data together, but for any serious-minded university, it should not just be left into the hand of the administration as, okay, there's one form that has been sent, can you fill it? It is not filling of form. It goes beyond filling of form. That is number one. And the second part to it is the fact that every university must make the deliberate effort, first of all, to want to be on the global ranking, not because it gives you money, but I can tell you, time will not permit you, didn't ask that question. I can tell you how much that can give you. Take, for example, in the last 3 years, there is no Nigerian university that has been able to win even 50% of the grant the University of Lagos has won. We have won 14 billion naira in grant in the last 3 years. 14 billion naira grant in 3 years in University of Lagos. And we started to pay deliberate attention to this global ranking just exactly 3 years ago. So today we've seen how that has paid off. Within the last 3 years, we have had about 120 MOUs. Many universities now beckoning to us, or even the one again, selecting the one we want to have and the one we don't want to have. So that is what ranking can do for you. So I like the fact that NUC is here too. It is quite important that we pay strong attention to this and give the support structure that can make all the Nigerian universities, the major ones, to be captured on the global ranking, so that at the end of the day, we can be globally competitive.
Thank you very much, Professor Adebisi. I really appreciate that. Now I'll jump over to Mr. Bisong. You've heard it from Professor Adebisi. He has said that they are very deliberate. It was a conscious decision. They appointed a very senior academic to drive the process and oversee it. Now, my question to you is twofold. One is sometime last year, the National Communications Commission announced that they were going to give research grants to a number of universities, 5 universities in total. The amount in total came to about 54.7 million naira. This is good money, but internationally, it's not a lot of money, a lot of research. So I'm curious to know, does NUC have a policy in place in terms of driving engagement with the private sector, with ministries, departments, and agencies, and international associations, development partners, to pull in research funding for Nigerian universities? Does that currently exist?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Oyaso. Let me start by saying that any issue bothering universities, the NUC is regulating. The university must take some lead in doing some things right. Now, I tell you something. The NUC has what it's called Nigeria University Research and Educational Fair. That project was put in place to promote university industry linkage. It was like setting the ball rolling for universities to embrace a culture where they see how to explore avenues to be close to the industry for possible for
network requires rebooting.
For possible collaboration, possible that from NUC to take a quantum. Yeah, whenever there's slowed down, whenever a federal university vice chancellor is a new university vice chancellor is appointed and a registrar, the commission deliberately takes these 2 principal officers abroad to visit on a study tour to foreign universities to train them so that they interface with those foreign universities with a view to perhaps recruiting some of those faculties, open avenues for international students to come in. But universities don't have done that. So I tell you, Mr. Yesu, our universities must sit up to do the needful. And you see, we cannot be seen to be micromanaging our university. We're very careful with that. We show them, we give them the green light, we give them support, but we cannot micromanage them. Now, I tell you what, when you look at the entire parameter for global ranking, university ranking, you talk about academic reputation, talk about employer reputation, you talk about faculty student ratio, you talk about citation, you talk about international student ratio, you talk about international faculty ratio. And university is universal. There is no clear cut to say we are Nigerian university way of doing our things. It is a universal concept. It is a universal concept. We have deliberately in our policies promotion of collaboration with universities. And we have the legal department that front for them. When universities want to establish a collaboration, they come to us for advice. Well, how many universities has on this? We cannot be carrying a cane to pursue them for crying out loud. So our universities are telling to us a very local scene. That is what we are observing in the recent time. So they are not open the scope, the privilege that are bound in them to see what other people are doing. It is a universal, university means universal. So what is happening in Harvard ought to happen here. But our university must be seen to take the lead in this. So NUC has always consistently promoted collaborations. We have consistently brought about programs. Look, we have doctoral thesis award scheme. It is a to industry to see how they follow it up. But how many universities do their PhD and send the copies to us during the curriculum for entire Nigerian university system? Now, I tell you what, that is the division I belong. When we send out a request for universities to go through a draft curriculum and return to us, but you see, as we speak, less than 5% or less than 3% of the entire Nigerian universities responded to that request to review the curriculum in line with global best practices. So that is how they are. In 2016, we sent a draft curriculum for them to make input and return to us to finalize, and it become a benchmark. They rather chose to keep it there and started using it as a curriculum. So you see, we need to do. I commend this day for doing this, and I say this with all sense of responsibility. President of UNICA, Professor Joseph Mushieku is here. So this is have to stand up to do some things. This country is ours. We have to do things to build it up. We have everything within our reach to become like Harvard. But let me also round up by saying that yes, it is true. There is always controversy surrounding ranking. Someone said there's no, it's not true. There's always because the parameters adopted by one ranking body is usually different from what the other does. Now, let me tell you, there's something now. The latest 2021 ranking by QS showed that Massachusetts Institute of Technology is #1. The world ranked by Times Higher Education shows that University of Oxford is #1. The world ranked that academic, that's AWU, the one that I call Shanghai ranking, shows that Harvard University is #1. Then if you go to QS ranked University of Oxford, that is being ranked by Times Higher Education as #5. Why Harvard? Minnesota Institute of Technology never showed up in Times Higher Education ranking for 2021 among the top 5. But yet, when you go to the Shanghai ranking, Minnesota Institute of Technology is #4. So because there are parameters that each ranking body uses, so there's always controversy surrounding it. But despite the controversy underpinning ranking has come to stay, and we must, as a university system, as a country, key into it, because we cannot be seen to be playing locally. Our universities go out to seek for grants. They go out to seek for grants to come. So why won't they stick for those parameters that other foreign universities are doing? So let us balance this thing. It will be well. So I profusely commend University of Lagos for deliberately pursuing the ranking team. And I can understand why the DVC said they have realized like 14 billion naira in the last 3 years, because ranking has immense benefit. So Business Day, thank you for this platform. And I pray and I hope as a commission, the commission hopes that this step you've taken will really yield fruitful result in future rankings, beginning from 2022. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I will just take the last round of questions due to time. But let me just re-echo what Mr. Bisson has said. One, he said the NUC is like the central bank, perhaps. They want to provide, a guidance framework, but they don't want to be seen to micromanage institutions. And at the end of the day, ranking, positioning, the exact strategy to use, it should reside with the universities. He had also said, I won't say he disagreed, but he agreed to differs slightly from what Professor Guzie had said, which was that rankings are controversial because the way one ranking system sees it, one might be heavily research-based, one might be based more on the student experience, another might be based, based on, infrastructure, facilities at university. But like Professor Debisi had said, whatever ranking system you select, find out the criteria and meet it. Now I'll come back to Professor Guzie. Professor Guzie, you're the Deputy Vice Chancellor at FUTO. At the same time, you lead an innovation practice there at the university. I'm curious to know how much of industry exchange currently goes on in the work you do, because when it comes down to it, a university is supposed to be a knowledge transfer community, patents, spin-off companies, startups. How much of that is FUTO actually driving today from your position? And I'm also curious to know as well, how much funding do you attract from the private sector? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Yeah, so let me just say something, right? It's good to play as an international university, right? But I think each of us here should take a look at that needs assessment video, and then you tell ourselves some honest truths. If you want someone from some other country to come and visit Nigerian universities in certain state. So for us in FUTO, we've had quite some good investments in terms of grants, right? We've got 2 centers from the World Bank, the Center of Excellence in Future Energies and Education Systems, which are ahead, and the Center of Excellence in procurement, sustainable procurement and environmental standards. Both of these centers are bringing in about close to 12, 13 billion to the university, right? So they also have a center from the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board called the Center of Excellence in Local Material Substitution, which will also bring in some good money. So that's it. We need to, like I said earlier, we need to put in strategies and processes, right? Just last week, there was an article from the United States talking about their national tech initiative of almost 20 years ago and how it has been successful, right? Because the government funded nanotechnology research specifically in the academia, in government agencies, and in industry labs. All of them, all these sectors working together in the same direction. Then you must have innovation. The same thing too when the government of the US had their fuel cells project. The same thing, they bring in the money and they fund research in a particular area for academia, for government agencies, and for industries. And that's the way to drive innovation. But in Nigeria, there's no such focus on specific areas. So you have researchers doing what they do with their money, right? And then industry hoping that will solve a problem for them. It cannot be that way. Most of the research done by Nigerian researchers are self-funded. Like I mentioned before, the important thing for every academic is promotion. So we fund ourselves to do the research that will give us the outputs we need for promotion. There's no interface between academia and industry where we come to discuss their problems, or there was none. But these days now, such interfaces are arising. Like the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board has a biannual fair where they bring industry, bring academia, and dialogue. Right? So it is that dialogue has to be available. So for us in FUTO, we're looking at having what we call an energy hub. TED Fund has been gracious to fund for us what we call a FUTO technology and incubation park, owing $2 billion, which will soon be completed. We have the Center of Excellence in Energy. We have the Center of Excellence in Local Material Substitution. So we have the infrastructure, we have the backbone for this. And for instance, in the center which I had, we've had very strong input from our alumni community. experts in those areas. So all these are there, but the university alone cannot drive innovation. It has to involve the private sector, it has to involve the government, and it must involve the society. It's called a quadruple helix. We do the innovation, government provides the enabling environment, and the people will own it, and promote it. I was in China some time ago. People we are working with, doing work on bioabsorption, using biomaterials for oil cleanup. Nigerian researchers may have the highest output in this area in terms of research publications. But when they went to China, in their lab there, they had already bagged their own biomaterials because the government, the Ministry of Technology, had given them a project to use it and solve that problem. But in Nigeria, it's not very common. When there was the Ogoni cleanup, we went to make a presentation, went to Federal Ministry of Environment to make a presentation, and we asked for this cleanup in Ogoni provides an avenue for Nigeria, a major player in oil and gas, to develop and grow its own homegrown cleanup technologies. Set out part of this spill site. Let Nigerian researchers that have developed processes for cleanup come there and try it out. But funny enough, one, the requirement was that you must bring a foreign company. I brought a Chinese company. Two, they didn't like Chinese companies. But the director there was very impressed with the idea of having a test site to grow the innovation there, but it didn't see the light of day after that. So no matter what we do as a university, if the government doesn't doesn't take it serious, then we won't make much progress. Futo is pushing out to become an entrepreneurial university. Well, we are open to investors. Come and invest. Partner with the university, because we've seen that being on our own will not give us much progress. Right. So we've done a lot in that regard, and we are calling on people, the government, industry, create even this business day event today is very good, because you can now create the interface where we can meet with industry and have a discussion. It's very important. So now, for instance, now we're talking with NMPC Research, Technology and Innovation. We give them a presentation, they've seen what we are doing, and they've picked out some topics there because there was an interface. Outside that, we just do our research and publish, and industry goes on doing their own thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Guzier.
Obi, you are muted. Obi, you are muted. We can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. My apologies. I was saying that this is the final round of questions. So I'm going to just, where we have 2 more questions for each panelist, I'll just merge them into one. So Professor Chefu, the question was, since some of the rankings are based on research, is there a risk that people can game the system by publishing volume over value, particularly for rankings that rely on open access research publications versus maybe peer-reviewed, more restricted access publications? And the second question was, overseas, it's been found that the higher ranked a university is, the more it can charge its students. In Nigeria, for most publicly funded universities, if you raise your school fees or your tuition by as much as 100 naira, you can rest assured that NANS is going to shut down your university. So what is the incentive for university to even pursue rankings besides prestige? Thank you very much.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head by raising that issue of cost sharing between the university and the students and their parents. And arising from the fact that where the universities are so badly funded, you have, like I said earlier on, very petty issues that university administrators have to deal with, that they cannot focus on the big picture that encompasses the global ranking standards. How many universities in Nigeria have bandwidth that is up to STM1 or STM2? You still have universities in this country that are talking 20, 30, 40 megabytes of bandwidth as the bandwidth that is available to the entire university. And if you are going to do research on that type of bandwidth, what are you really talking about? You still have universities where the academic calendar is not predictable. Most of our public universities, the academic calendar is not predictable. So you know when you are going to start the program, or you don't even know when you are going to start the program. You don't know when you're going to complete the program because you have 4 unions that are on campus that at each point in time, anything can happen. So when you contextualize all these pedestrian issues, serious issues that affect the entire workflow of the university, you now realize that, yes, staff will have to work 15 weeks in a semester and try to pursue research outcomes and outputs that, like somebody said, just gets them the ability to get promoted. It is only recently, working with the Committee of Vice Chancellors, that we have developed our own homegrown plagiarism software and research repository, so that we are now able to provide a database of who is doing what research where. I mean, can I as a researcher go on a platform and say, I want to write a history of Business Day newspaper, and then I can go to a database and find out that about 100 other people have done a similar research, and so my research output, my research originality it's not going to be high because so many people have worked on that project. So these type of basic platforms are only now beginning to emerge in the system. The other thing that I also want to really pick out quickly is the fact that the NUC as a regulatory agency does accreditation every 3 years and every 5 years, as the case may be, depending on the outcome of the previous accreditation, whether you have full accreditation or whether you have partial accreditation. And I think that that will be a good way, a good model to start. At the end of each accreditation phase, they should publish a ranking of some sort that will let Nigerians know what the accreditation status each university, each program is. Because in the part of the template that you sent to us, you said, how do parents know that if I want to study computer science, which is the best university to go and study computer science in Nigeria? Where were they going to get that type of information from? I think that type of information can be made available on an NUC accreditation platform that says, at the end of this academic session, run accreditation for 100 universities, and these are the results. So the parent and the student now knows that if I want to study medicine, this is the university that has the highest accreditation ranking as far as that particular course is concerned. So that will be my quick intervention in that regard, please.
Thank you very, very much. We've had 1 or 2 questions coming. I'll post that. I'll keep that for Dr. Oluwaseun and Professor Adebisi. But now coming over to Larry, I hope Larry is still with us. Is Larry still here?
Okay, yes, I am. Yeah.
So I have another question for you. This was a statement made a while ago, and I picked it up. And the person said, Nigerian graduates are cheap by global standards, but costly to supervise. Do you think universities should be rewarded or penalized in rankings for the employability and mobility of their graduates? I mean, some business schools, Harvard, the best business schools, some of the best universities, they say, 3 years after graduation, sort of justified investment, as former students are earning, so much money. Do you think universities should be penalized or rewarded for this?
I think, sorry, I think my internet connection is a bit unstable. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. But you have a statement that Nigerian graduates are cheap to employ and costly to supervise. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think that, it's important that graduates are employable. I'm aware, as you said, many of these rankings, or well, some of these rankings, focus on alumni experience, and even up to 2-3 years out of school. So they're asking questions, as you say, about have you been employed? What's your salary? Are you and other things. So the alumni experience is very important. Why would you spend so much money getting a degree without getting any value? So it's critical. Now, are Nigerian graduates costly to supervise? I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mentioned earlier that, my experience of Nigerian graduates from some universities, obviously I've not had exposure to all of them, but I mean, some universities where I met graduates on internships showed how resourceful and driven and very brilliant, some of these students are. And they've gone on to set up, I won't mention the names, but some of these guys who I met during the internship program when I was at this institution have gone on to start technology startups. So and that are very successful right now, doing very well. So I think that it's not a fair statement. However, I know that, that does not always extend to all universities. I think even in Nigeria, we have elite universities that have very, very able students. And it's probably just a question of, preparing them for a workplace environment. So, they might not necessarily have the tools that, are available to them in a professional work setting, and there's an adjustment process. But, I know that many do catch on very, very quickly. So that is probably for a subset of Nigerian students. On the flip side, I have met some graduates that need a lot of work. So I think, on balance, you have to, when making a recruiting decision, you are looking at what they are bringing. And I'm glad to say that, some of the universities I've come across and the graduates I've come across are excellent. They just need a little work. But yes, going back to the earlier point, I think that there should be, alumni experience should be taken into consideration. Ability to get jobs after graduation is important. And if there is a ranking available, yes, that should be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. I really appreciate your answer, sorry. Now I'll move over to Professor Adebisi before I move to the last two panelists. We had a question coming around the brain drain, brain circulation debate. I was still quite young. I probably was still in early years in primary school when I think, the first major brain drain occurred under former President Babangida, because I know I had a lot of family friends who are moving to Saudi Arabia, America, the doctors and the professors. But today everyone is moving to Canada. A lot of people are moving to Canada and other countries. How do you see the long-term impact of this on university rankings? So that was a question that came in. But for you, the question we have for you, so I'm hopeful that you will answer that. The question we have for you, which dovetails with what I asked Mr. Fatiblein, was around employability. He had mentioned 2, 3, 4 years after graduation. But what we found is that in the last couple of years, more graduates are choosing entrepreneurial careers. And the thing about entrepreneurship is you don't have a steady salary for a number of years. So could that put rankings based on employability give a flawed picture? If I've graduated, I'm not an entrepreneur, you call me 3 years later, will be how much I earn. I say I'm not earning any money, but I'm building the next great Google. How do you tie that up? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And as a matter of fact, let me take this first before I talk about the brain drain. That is the future of this country. In fact, that is the future of Africa, entrepreneurship. And because it gives you, first of all, the opportunity and the confidence of self-independency right from the day you live in the university, because you're sure that there is startup that you created that you know for sure that has the potential of becoming another Facebook or becoming another Google in no meantime. So it's not going to impact negatively on ranking, because when you look at ranking most of the time, they're asking us, what is the percentage of our students that have been employed in the last 5 years? So most of the time when we get the feedback from the students, it's easy for, we are not necessarily going to start asking how much they are earning, but how many of them are gainfully employed and which sector are they? So I'll give you another example. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos has saddled me with the responsibility of ensuring that between now and 2025, we have 5,000 studentpreneurship. So, that is 5,000 studentpreneurs. They will have become, graduates, but they are our students who started entrepreneurship in the university, and they are still in entrepreneurship. And what we are trying to do is the fact that we want not less than 5% of the between 5 and 15% of the students we graduate every year to become entrepreneurs. That is to say, to have started their businesses right away from the university system. Like Harvard and MIT, they do, that they create about 2,000 businesses every year. We are starting, University of Lagos is starting with between 250 and 500. So as I speak to you now, we are going to register 200 businesses, startups, free of charge. University of Lagos is going to pay fully for such businesses between now and December through a program we call BITE. One of the things we've seen is that when they come on board, we build that into team. You see a student that has a business idea coming up with like 3 or 4 persons. 4 multiplied by 200, that is 1,000 students. That by the time they get out from the university by December, by next year, 1,000 students are already doing things on their own, not looking for employment. So those 1,000 students are students or graduates of the University of Lagos who have gotten employment, whether you like it or not. That is one. Secondly, because I'm saying this because of colleagues here, which is what we've been doing in University of Lagos to share. There are 2 capabilities we give to our students, which is under my purview: employability capability and entrepreneurship capability. As I sit now in the hub where I am speaking to you, is because of my respect for this program. Opposite me now, there's a program going on that I call a finishing school, and I'm doing in partnership with Jobaman. Jobaman, since last week, has been training in collaboration with me, I've been training our final year students on employability skill, which we call, soft skills. So my center, my hub, is a hub where I give birth to entrepreneurs and incubate them. And it's equally the same hub where I finish our student. I call it the finishing school. So it needs to take deliberate interest and effort. Once we do that, the student will believe in themselves. Why are they running away? I'm now linking it to your second question. Why are the youth running to Canada? It's because they look at it at every point in time that the opportunity is not created for them, and they passively think that money is running on the street of Canada. No.
Academics who are moving out.
You understand? Yeah. The academics that are moving out. Very correct. The academic will tell you that I'm doing that because of my children. I have engaged some of my colleagues where I want a better life for my children. And I used to ask them, where were you given a better life before you now have an opportunity to move to Canada? You see, we all need to look inward. I have said it. Canada is a country of about 35 million people with a huge landmass. In the next 5 years, some of them will want to come to this nation, and some of us will tell them you cannot come. Because yes, the population is still at the advantage to Canada. I agree, things seem to be working. Our government needs to make things to work in this place. But if everybody runs out, if Obi runs out, we'll not be having this discussion. If Larry runs out, we'll not be employing those people that they have employed. If Yakubu has run away, we'll not be here discussing Nigeria. This is a great country. So we should all look inward. We all should stand up and see how the nation can be better. We have 133 million youth between the age 15 and 35. That is a massive resource. where they're running to today, I work with Professor Baleti of Curtin University. That is the man that practically built the ecosystem, the business ecosystem of Ottawa in Canada. I understand how they did that right from 1990. People must pay attention to, developing the youth. So, yeah, the brain drain is happening now, but alas, the opportunity in Nigeria, I will close with this. Any meaningful companies of the world that is not in Africa by 2030 does not have a future. You guys in business today, you understand what I'm talking about. Any meaningful business of the world, conglomerate, that is not in Africa by 2030 does not have a future. Do not forget that in every 5 African, 1 is a Nigerian. And this is the biggest economy. This is the biggest, people, this is the biggest market. So it means that all these companies need to be in Nigeria. So what is my own concern is that I need to build the youth, let them create companies so that by the time all these companies are coming, they will have partners that they can do what? That they can join force with to build this ecosystem. I don't want them to come into Nigeria and come and start owning companies without jointly owning the companies with the youth. That is why the grant I want from UKRI, the £600,000 grant, I'm using it to build the Africa youth, ensuring that I'm looking at how unemployment can be resolved. All of us should do that. I don't respect anybody that's getting out of this country in the name of, I want my children to have a good life. We are just, what happens to the children of Nigerians? I think we all need to do this. You guys are doing a good job. Let's do it together. That's my motto. I have no respect for anybody that leaves this nation because you're looking for greener pasture. I have no respect. I apologize for that, but I have no singular respect for such people.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. What we take from what you said, thank you for the encouragement and the faith in Nigeria. Heaven knows that Nigeria needs believers right now. And I'm happy to see you waving the flag, green, white, green. Next, I'll move on to Dr. Luwashel. So you work closely with the VC at Babcock, Professor Tayo. Now, I'm curious to know, this is something that overseas, when university administrators, vice chancellors speak about their achievements during their tenure, they are speaking of more, when they speak of Maslow's order of priorities, they are speaking of, higher concepts. But in Nigeria, when VCs speak of their achievements, they speak of, oh, I renovated the staff, whatever. Oh, we renovated the social sciences faculty. Oh, we put ACs in the library. Oh, we curb cult-related activities in school. Oh, we've reduced female sexual harassment. Do you think wrestling with some of these survival savage issues might also be a fact that is just hindering their ability to say, you know what, let's even look beyond Nigeria and compete with, international universities? And then we had a question coming, which I would also like you to answer. The question was around, in terms of research grants. Could you give a sense, do you have a sense of how much research grants your university receives? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Mr. Obi. So thank you. It's been a very wonderful outcome. I want to also thank the Business Day newspaper for putting together this wonderful session. So let me start, first of all, with the first question. And that's on the fact that, like you said, a number of vice chancellors most times, celebrate achievements about how they've achieved campus security, how they've been able to curb sexual harassment and things like that. Yes, that has become a popular narrative in the Nigerian educational space, based on a number of challenges also that have been found within the system, you see. But let me also say that abroad, even in the United States, in UK, in Canada, they also have their local challenges as well. But as a university, an ivory tower is premised on 3 major things: teaching, research, and community service. But of the 3 of them, you see, research is at the center, the crux of it. Research is actually the nucleus. And then research impacts teaching, and then it impacts community service. So as much as we might celebrate some successes, those successes we have mentioned, all those factors are not intrinsic to the major reason why the university should be there. But those successes are important also for the students to be able to have the teaching experience they need. It's also important for the lecturers to do their job. So they are important, but they should not now overcome or be placed as higher priority than the core reasons. And that is why ranking today has not gained the kind of attention it should have gained by Nigerian universities. Because it has become a popular thing to just all say the same things. But what we are saying is the world is not waiting. And talking about the issue of ranking, in fact, in Bangkok University, I think for the past 7 years now, this has been a major thing. And then the university takes deliberate effort. Every lecturer is mandated to create Google Scholar accounts, ORCID, and all of that. And failure to do that, in fact, the school would stop your salary. But where I'm going is, it's important. The discussions on most times when we hear discussions about ranking in Nigeria, people are saying, "Oh, is it biased? That is not true. They are not being fair on Africans and all of that." But I want us to know, for each of the ranking schemes, the popular ones, we talk about ranking, and we'll talk about even ranking the rankers themselves. And in a short time, in 2 minutes, let me just do that. Normally, then ARWU, I will be faster. ARWU, this is a very important subject you brought up. Is a very pertinent issue and topical one. So that is why I'm burning. In ARWU, what we call Academic Ranking of World Universities, done in Shanghai, China, in the lab, was for most times the highest before now. But now we're having the Times Higher Education coming up even higher than it. But Times Higher Education following ARWU, then Webometrics. All of these rankers, they have the right and prerogative to choose their ranking schemes and to choose their parameters and to also decide on what yardstick or what metric comes up or takes priority. And that's why you can see also each of them have different metrics they prioritize based on the core objective of this buckle up and to ensure that what they are offering is of top quality. But when we sit back here in Nigeria and Africa and keep, arguing about their metrics, what I think we need to do, first of all, is also to know that we need to step up to the global competition of those schools. Also because faculty members will leave from Nigeria to go over there a lot of times, make presentations, do things there, students will go there. And then it's important, but more importantly also, we need to also sit down, and I'm thinking this can be done and anchored by the National Universities Commission to create also a similar ranking scheme that will be peculiar to Nigeria. A lot of times when I go on the Webometrics ranking and I see what they do every time, ranking web of universities, they rank, and that is what the NEC also extracts to use for Nigeria, which is not bad. But I'm thinking because of some local peculiarities, NEC can go a step further also to design something similar to that to be able to now prioritize the Nigerian peculiar factors in ranking our own universities, rather than just simply adopting what they do. Why what they do cannot change, it has to stand. But just like somebody was suggesting earlier, NUC also needs to do, and that can be done easily. Even part of what they can use is the accreditation they go for. Like the person, somebody said earlier, the professor said earlier, that would be good to also give people, parents and students ideas of which school are ranking higher in whatever. So I think with that, I will first answer that first question. So that is about that. Security and all those things are good to celebrate, those kind of successes, but it does not change the fact that research and teaching should be our priorities. So that's about that. Then,
but just to jump into the second question, someone just sent a question which ties in with what you just answered. With private universities, so I don't think you have the challenge of ASU. I don't know.
No. We don't have.
Do you think that universities that suffer incessant strikes should be penalized? Because I don't think it's a function of the particular university. If ASU decides on a national strike, it doesn't affect, it has nothing to say with, Do you think universities should be penalized for students suffering strikes in universities, in rankings? If we did a Nigerian ranking.
Okay, in rankings. No. The thing about strikes, I also went to a public university at my first degree before I came here for master's and PhD. But for that, you see, that is an issue that the rankers have no business with. See, these rankers, for example, if you use Webometrics as an example, for ARWU, they are more interested in the quality of your faculty. For example, if you have Nobel Prize winners, ARWU will reckon with you. You see, for THE, Times Higher Education will reckon more with you on how your university core objectives are aligned with the Millennium Development Goals. And for web men, on the other hand, what they want to see is your web presence, visibility. So for them, they are not concerned about strikes. And strikes really should not even be, let me also talk about that. Strikes should not also be an excuse for faculty members or lecturers not to do their job. Even strike, we don't have that in the private system, but even strike should be an opportunity for a lecturer to have more time to do quality research, if that was what you want to say. I'm saying that will not be a factor for the rankers to penalize. They don't need to penalize. What they need to see is the metrics are using, the indicators. But if during strike is also a time where when the school is shut down, students are not in school, the lecturers go and start doing business. And lecturers are buying and selling, are not doing their jobs. Also, that will impact on the quality of output, especially from that school. They have to go down on the scale. So that's about that. But about strike, there's a little to which anybody can do. Because we talk about ASU, NASU, SANU, these are bodies with national representatives, also with local in the different schools. But you see the problem with that, which I don't want us to dwell so much on that. I think that's actually an issue for the federal government and then you see. But the issue with that is also that beyond the national strikes of ASU and SANU and NASU, there are local strikes. I think that is the job of the Federal Ministry of Education to look into that. The local versions of the strikes, where ASU national stops and ASU local, maybe a particular school chapter now, begins their own. And the students are at home 1 year, 2 years, that is actually our own local problem. But what concerns the rankers is what are we churning out as relates to their own metrics or indicators. If the metrics is increasing, no problem. If they can measure you to have still done well, no problem. So that one is our local problem. I think I've answered that one. So.
Yes, you have. Yes, you
have.
Okay,
then the last one about the amount of grants that the university attracts over a period of time. You see, every year we also have a report of research activities in the university and also the amount of funds that generated. But let me also say, if it is though we got a lot of grants, if I look at foreign grants and grants from outside, we look at maybe the hundreds of millions. But I also want us to know that we in the private sector, we actually are not as opportune, let me like that, as the federal universities or public universities. For example, TED Fund is not gotten by any private university in Nigeria today. That's still an argument we've been trying to push. And we think we need also to benefit from TED Fund because the students also who we are training are going to the same labor market as those from the public universities. They're also offering their own quality and output they've gotten from the school. They are going to give that to the same labor market. We are in the same industry. So we are actually segregated. When it comes to TED Fund, we don't get any of those. So most of the grants we get are actually from foreign bodies. And when we also look at funding, earlier there was some discussion on funding. I want to say that ranking is not entirely based on funding, but funding has a major role to play. What about funding, for example? I am aware that all federal universities get subvention from the government annually, and this is actually a huge chunk. Private universities get nothing. So all we have to do is to manage our own intergenerational revenue to actually do most of these things. So, but the school, even with the little we get, we still ensure that funds are given to researchers. Even every year we have what we call the Babcock University Grant Award, where we select about the best 20 ideas about research and fund them. So I think I will stop there. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very, very much. This has just been an enriching session. For the last question, I'll go to Mr. Bisong. Are you there, please? Perfect. Great. So the question about research is major. Research keeps coming up, and this is an issue that one, universities need to do more. Second, they need visibility for their research to come out. Now, even though TED Fund is not, part of, NUC is different, TED Fund is different, but TED Fund's budget was increased last year from 3.5 billion to 7.5 billion, over 100% increase. But the fact remains that Nigerian universities, private and public, are not receiving enough money to carry out solid research. At the level of the NUC, again, I'm coming back to this question because someone had actually sent that in the question box. What is the NUC doing to support the university system as a whole, both private and public, to identify and partner with potential funders? Thank you. Are you there, Mr. Dixon?
Thank you, Mr. Yesu. Let me start. Africa Center of Excellence, ACEs. Now, this project in Nigeria is NGC is providing secretary for that project. It's a project that attracts so much millions of dollars into African universities, and it is irrespective of any type of university. So both public, federal, state, and private universities were encouraged to key into it to bid with good proposals. And private universities also won. So we have 10 of such centers, African Center of Excellence, in our universities. So that is one major way AUC is promoting research in ACE. There's another project tied to it that is called ACE Impact. These are also issues or projects that AUC is in the forefront to promote research funding in Nigerian universities. Then even the TED fund you've mentioned, TED fund has so much money tied up for research to promote research activities in universities. I am aware that presently TED fund is reviewing its policy framework on research funding, the research fund for Nigerian universities. So, and then the secretariat, some staff of NUC are on board that committee. In fact, a staff of NUC is the secretary of that committee to review the framework for funding research. So NUC is not folding its hands. So we have always promoted research. So we have brought in TED fund. I mean, we have brought in World Bank through using the ACE centers, and even private universities are benefited from there. You know, we are building ACE Impact in the Nigerian university system through our collaborative effort with World Bank. We are also working with TED fund to ensure that research fund is made available to universities. And above all, we are also encouraging our universities to enter into collaboration. We've said this before with foreign institutions, both universities and other organizations, to attract funding. But you see, Mr. Yoshi, like we said earlier, ranking is critical even in this dimension, because when you're out there and they know who you are as an institution, more organizations will be interested in coming to you. I want to also say that just to inform that and you see that our university graduates have some deficit in terms of what the first century labor market needs. So presently we are reviewing our curriculum that we call benchmark minimum academic standards, and we are rechristening it. The product that will emanate from this exercise will be called core curriculum and minimum academic standards. We are working with academic experts, we are working with professional bodies, we are working with foreign development partners to see that each curriculum for every program taught in Nigeria University is entrepreneurial. That is element of, there's a bit of entrepreneurship in every program, whether it's theater art, whether it's mass communication, whether it's education, physics, whether it's biology, there must be a bit of entrepreneurship. So these are some innovations we are introducing. And by God's grace, before this year runs out, the new BMAS document for all the 188 programs in Nigerian University and some additional ones that have come on board will be introduced in the Nigerian University system. So we're not missing our house, but what did you say?
What did you call the document again?
Yes, the document that will come out from next year will be called Core Curriculum and Minimum Academic Standards. Core Curriculum and Minimum Academic Standards. It's going to replace the existing benchmark minimum academic standards, which we call BMAS. So what will come out of this exercise will be called CCMAS. And the coordinator general of facilitator general is a distinguished Professor Peter Kebukola, and is doing so well in it. So before December this year, we are sure we're going to introduce a brand new tier leader curriculum in the Nigerian university system, referred to as the CCMAS. So, but Mr. Oyesi, like I've appealed before, we are in this together. We are partners in progress. Our universities must be seen to also do their own part. While we are bringing in this innovation, we are trying to ensure that our curriculum are entrepreneurial, it behoves on the university that will deliver this curriculum to teach even those aspects. So we will develop them with them, but the behove on them will not go to the field to teach. They are the one to teach. So when this curriculum eventually comes out, our university will please make the country proud by stepping in to implement the curriculum. Because if we bring out this fantastic looking document and the lecturers are not implementing into the latter, it will be an exercise in futility. So they need to complement our effort as we keep on progressing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
From our Professor on the NUC doing ranking based on program activity. I'm going to convey to my boss, the Executive Secretary, accordingly. And I want to also add that we don't adopt ranking, hook, line, and sinker. Someone say we don't adopt ranking. We just did our own ranking since 2005. We've never done any ranking since then. We just did it once, that's 2005. So we're in the process of teaching DAPs on how to be digital literacy, to be literate, that we start introducing our own element of ranking. But I tell you, by the time we unveil our own ranking, there will be local content in it. In addition to this foreign parameters, there's going to be local content to give our own perspective, because we have our particular challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bisong. I really appreciate this.
Okay.
Great. So we have come to the end of today's event. It's taken a few minutes longer than originally planned, but it's been time well found. What should be the criteria and what should be the weighting of, the inputs into university rankings? And some things have come out. Everyone here agrees that research is number one. Research is critical to rankings. Secondly, teaching. A few other things have come out. One is how much universities invest in their brands. With rankings as well, it's important that universities have a deliberate strategy and execute faithfully on it in terms of climbing the rankings. Everyone here agreed that rankings are good. No one should run away from them. The fact is, it's like a young man who now starts growing beards and has razor bumps. The challenge is to learn how to shave, because beards will always come out. So rankings are now a fact of life. Universities have to find a way, to participate and climb them up one rung at a time. From the buy side, we had Mr. Larry Lutman speak around the fact that he keeps an open mind, when employing people. However, the thing about a known university brand is that it gives people a second chance. It gives people the benefit of the doubt. So I'm sure that's something that we'll all take back. Also on industry-university collaboration, Professor Oguzie had said that a lot of efforts are going on, but it needs better coordination. And some of that coordination, has to be driven from outside university, either from the government level or, the industry, the various companies, the various private sector groups also engage universities directly to say, this is what we need. For Professor Ochefu, who is at the Council of VCs, he spoke again from the university administrator point of view at the very high level. He said that, that many VCs are just dealing with, bread and butter issues. How can I keep the lights on in my university? How can I, pay, bills at the end of the month? That when people have such basic issues to deal with, telling them about global rankings might be sexy, but at the end of the day, that's not what's keeping them awake at night. They still have very basic issues to wrestle with. So all in all, this has been very exciting. From Babcock, we had Dr. Shane will come and share with us, the experience. I mean, 3 things that he picked out: international partnerships, global collaboration, and professional, relationships. So all across board, we had, very good ideas. We thank Mr. Bisong as well from the NUC, giving the regulator's point of view at a very high level, and also knowing how much can you nudge the universities and where do you stop and let them, own their destinies. So once again, on behalf of my publisher, Frank Aigbogun, and my managing director, Dr. O. Kitty, we want to say a huge thank you to everyone who took part in today's event. We really appreciate it. I'll just call out the names once again. Professor Emeko Oguzie of the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, who represented the Vice Chancellor, Professor Oti. Thank you very much for your time. We also thank Mr. Larry Fatimlei, who is the president of the Oxford Cambridge Club of Nigeria. We thank you for your time. We know you're a very busy man. We're very grateful for finding the time to be part of this. We thank Dr. Noah Shonwe-Bishiwa, who represented his Vice Chancellor, Professor Tayo. We're really grateful for your time. You shared a lot of very useful insights. We're very, very happy for having you. Personally, from Business Day, I want to say a huge congratulations to Professor Sunday Adebisi on your promotion. We hope that you'll invite us at some point to come and eat rice and drink Coca Unilag, because I remember that's what profs do when they are made a professor. We thank you for the insights you shared from Silicon Valley, Carleton University, and other locations that are leading the innovation struggle. Very grateful for your ideas. I'm sure our people on the editorial side will also be reaching out to you to understand some of what you're doing with the finishing school, and the strategy that UNILAG is pursuing. I also want to thank Professor Ochefu Yakubu for the great work he's doing. He's a very distinguished man, very senior investor administrator. So we're very happy for what for his contributions here. Thank you very much, Professor. And we're also thankful to Mr. Unte Bisong, who represented his executive secretary at the National Investors Commission. He brought some home truths. I liked his very frank, unvarnished contributions. He was very honest about what needs to be done. Not apportioning blame, but saying people should rise to responsibility. Thank you very much to everybody. We look forward to having you again. I want to assure you that Business Day, we'll be drilling down on some of the ideas you've shared, and we'll be publicizing it, amplifying it in our newspaper. Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Delight was actually started to tell innovative, exciting, and positive food stories out of Lagos, Nigeria.
Being the foremost luxurious goods company in the entire West Africa is a big deal.
Will you have every opportunity? No. But you see, the opportunities you lose on account of your value system, that's your opportunity cost for what you believe, and it's the price you must be willing to pay.
Thank you very much.